After nearly 40 years of work, the French Academy has finished the new edition of the definitive French dictionary. But its relevance is already being questioned because it's taken so long to compile. Our Paris correspondent Hugh Schofield has been thumbing through it.
Founded in 1635, it would be an understatement to say that the Académie Française is having difficulties keeping up with the pace of the modern age. When its wise men and women, known as the Immortals, first started work on this 9th edition, it was 1986, and no one had dreamed of the internet or smartphones and the way linguistic and cultural change would be so vastly accelerated. The Immortals kept plodding along at the rate of one letter a year. The result now is a new edition replacing the 1935 one, which has certainly been praised, but which critics say is already out of date. While online and commercial French dictionaries are reacting with lightning speed to neologisms and borrowings, this official compendium of the language is too slow to include them. Its new words are new words from a previous generation. It has yuppie, for example, but not TikToker.
Hugh Schofield in Paris. Still to come. Now, have you ditched pen and paper in favour of smartphone and computer? Well, certainly handwriting skills are a lot less important than they used to be. But a group of best-selling authors is hoping to change all that. They're auctioning off some of their own handwritten notes as part of a campaign to encourage children to learn penmanship. But is it essential? Johnny Diamond got the opinion of tech journalist James Ball and Melissa Prunty, chair of Britain's National Handwriting Association.
Handwriting is really important for early education because it has a very deep level of processing. So when children are learning to read and spell for the first time, what they'll do is they map the sounds of the letters to the visual representation of the letter and then the instructions for writing the letter, and they write it. So it's got a very deep level of encoding, which supports spelling development and reading development.
And you are convinced that that encouragement that writing brings is not replicated on screen-based communication?
It depends on the age of the child, because when I'm having these conversations, the single biggest factor is speed. It's how fluent a person is at that mode of writing. So we know that the number of words that somebody can handwrite in a minute, or the number of words that somebody can type in a minute, that predicts how much they would write in a free writing task, but crucially, how good that piece of writing would be. So things like composition, grammar, spelling, cohesion, idea development.
James, you are a handwriting skeptic?
I have an axe to grind in that I was terrible at handwriting at school. An otherwise excellent and kindly teacher described it as a dying spider crawling across the page. But genuinely, I had to do remedial handwriting in detentions for years. And it's really made me hate the written word, and really, it almost put me off reading. And given I now work as a writer, that's quite bizarre. And so I tend to just be worried of anything too prescriptive. Handwriting will work brilliantly for some children, and it will work terribly for others. And when we're in a digital world, when even keyboards are quite outdated now, most people under 25 tap screens. I think we need to sort of look at what works once the child's got the language and they understand how to write, what works for them, what will they be using most, and what prepares them for the world.
You know, we've got lots of different tools for literacy. I mean, we write in lots of different ways. We write by hand, we send text messages, we send voice notes, we type, we put stuff into AI. We need tools for literacy, and that's how I would see handwriting. I saw some land surveyors on the side of the road the other day in the pouring rain, and they were holding paper and a pen. So I don't think every profession has moved into this digitalization world, but having it as a tool is how we would see it.
James, can I ask you just on the sort of sentimental front, if you do, I don't know if you ever do anymore, if you ever get a handwritten note or a card with writing inside it, do you think it's a little bit more warmth in your heart than a text message or an email?
I think there's still a place for it, isn't it? I mean, most of us talk to our partners far more over a text message than we ever will in a note. And so there's a place for it. I don't want to kill romance just before Christmas, but let's be honest, most of us are tapping, aren't we?
James Ball and Melissa Prunty talking to Johnny Diamond. The US President
Vicky Bristow. It seems that in this age of the internet and video games, some students are finding it increasingly difficult to concentrate on reading and are arriving at university to do literature courses without having read very many of the classics. The Atlantic magazine reports that many professors have noticed this trend. Jonathan Bate is Foundation Professor of Environmental Humanities at Arizona State University and Professor of English at Oxford. He's been telling Justin Webb about his experiences as a teacher.
I've been teaching in British and American universities for 40 years. And when I began in Cambridge, you could say to students, this week it's Dickens. Please read Great Expectations, David Copperfield and Bleak House. Now, instead of 3 novels in a week, many students will struggle to get through 1 novel in 3 weeks.
Why?
Well, the currently fashionable answer is that it's to do with the attrition of attention span due to smartphones, 6-minute YouTube videos and instant TikTok dopamine hits. And I guess that is part of the story in the last few years. But of course, it really does all begin in schools, doesn't it? You only have to look at the thinning of the GCSE and A-level syllabuses and the tendency to prescribe works because they're shorter. I think of it as the John Steinbeck Of Mice and Men effect. You know, they'd never prescribe The Grapes of Wrath anymore, but Of Mice and Men is nice and short. I think there's one other factor, though, which is a kind of unintended consequence of the push in both elite British and American universities towards diversity and access. You know, the very desirable idea of getting in more students from disadvantaged backgrounds. But of course, those students come from disadvantaged schools where the teacher's main task is crowd control. And so the demands in terms of reading long books just are not there. It was interesting that one professor quoted in this article in The Atlantic speaks of an attainment gap between public and privately educated students. And I would have to say, when I was teaching at Oxford, that was my experience.
What, those who had been educated in the state system in Britain were less able to engage?
It's exactly, not less able to engage, very, very able students, but they simply hadn't been exposed to large numbers of long books, hadn't really developed, you know, that habit of concentrated, lengthy reading, which private schools in both the UK and the US still concentrate on. That said, I mean, I find it very interesting out here in the States. There is this phenomenon in a lot of charter schools. Charter schools are a bit like academy schools. They're state-funded, but free to set their own syllabus. And there's a big revival within these schools of so-called classical education. So my teenager has just graduated out of a high school called Great Hearts. And there they read the Iliad, the Odyssey, Dante's Inferno, Shakespeare, Crime and Punishment. They even read Nietzsche and Hegel. My son came back from school one day saying, we had bagels in class. And I said, why? And he said, the teacher said, you're going to have Hegel bagels because you've been reading Hegel and he's really difficult, so I'll reward you with bagels. Well, I couldn't understand Hegel when I was a graduate student. I'm amazed that 17-year-old American kids are reading Hegel. So there is some hope.
Yeah. And for those who aren't doing those things, the longer term impact is what?
I think the longer term impact is both very troubling for the future of a literary culture. If you haven't got readers, what are writers going to do? The intensive, thoughtful, quiet reading of great books is good for mental health. It's very, very good for developing skills of concentration and critical thinking. And if that falls away, that is problematic for businesses, for society, for individuals.
And for the sake of balance, I think there are a lot of people who would say, who've been to state schools, that actually they read many of the classics while they were there. That was Professor Jonathan Bate. And podcast. The online dictionary, dictionary.com, has revealed its word of the year, demure. The word went viral in August after a TikTok creator, Jules LeBron, posted a video using the word to describe her makeup. Andrew Ochieng reports.
You see how I do my makeup for work? Very demure, very mindful.
That was Jules LeBron's video on TikTok, which has now been viewed millions of times online. Her exaggerated descriptions of how she and her followers should apply makeup for work was a hit. The use of the word demure has since skyrocketed, according to dictionary.com, especially in satirical posts on social media. The word has historically been used to describe discreet and reserved behavior. Now, the dictionary says it's also used to describe someone's appearance. Demure is also in the running to be the word of the year for the Oxford English Dictionary.
Andrew Ocheng. And that's all from us. Geek, photobomb, binge watch, lockdown. These have all been the Collins Dictionary Word of the Year. And now the winner for 2024 has been announced. Brat. But I should say that brat no longer has its old definition, meaning a spoiled, misbehaving child. It is a different use of brat that's helped it to achieve Word of the Year status, as our culture reporter Annabelle Rackham reports.
Here we go. The singer Charlie XCX is widely seen as the inspiration behind Brat's cultural takeoff. She used the word as the name of her chart-topping 6th studio album, which came out in June, inspiring a movement on social media. It was redefined as someone who is confident, independent, and has a hedonistic attitude. Yeah, 360. When you're in the mirror, do you like what you see? Its use marked a departure from the preceding clean girl trend that promoted things such as yoga and early nights on platforms such as TikTok. Brat was something even the US presidential candidate Kamala Harris got behind. After the pop star posted on X that Kamala is Brat, the Democrat hopeful rebranded her online campaign to mirror the album artwork. Other words that made it onto Collins' list this year included era, inspired by another pop star, Taylor Swift, and her sellout Eras tour, and Delulu, meaning utterly mistaken or unrealistic in one's ideas or expectations.
Annabelle Rackham and some other runners-up were brain rot, looks maxing, romanticy, and yapping, meaning talking too much. So, enough yapping.
Here in the UK, sticklers for the correct use of English have long complained about the creeping influence of American slang. Awesome, fries, and the use of like as a filler word have all upset English purists. But new research suggests the British tongue is fighting back and being adopted across the Atlantic, as Richard Hamilton explains.
The Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw once joked that England and America are two nations separated by a common language. While slang on either side of the pond may have evolved independently, the exchange of words is very much a two-way street. Many British words have been adopted by Americans, thanks to popular Gen Z or Z shows in the UK, such as Adolescence on Netflix and the reality TV series Love Island.
Don't raise your voice. No, because you're raising your voice to me. Did we not sort it out the other day? Clearly not. Clearly not.
Getting on my nerves now, babe.
You then asked the public whether we're the weakest connection.
Sorry, because you sit there asking me the same
question. A real friend doesn't do that, do they?
Yeah, they do.
Research by Northern Arizona University and Babbel, a language learning platform, has tracked the impact of different words using a database of 5 million transcribed words and 1,000 hours of spoken American English. Bonkers topped the list, accounting for 24% of all Britishisms identified. But amongst is also growing in popularity. Q instead of line is gaining traction due largely to a Q feature on Netflix, and cheeky, rather than meaning impudent, is being adopted in America to indicate playful indulgence. Other emerging Britishisms that were recorded include nutter, trousers, bugger, dodgy, kerfuffle, posh, aggro, banter, flummox, and bollocks. The researchers say the prevalence of these words is a reflection of globalization, driven by media and technology. The British TV shows, as well as pop stars such as Charlie XCX, are not just entertaining audiences, but exporting language and fueling cultural exchange.
Students in the UK are starting their first full week back at school after the summer break. But for pupils at one primary school in the village of Kenton in southwest England, their learning environment looks a little different. The children are having lessons in a medieval castle after their school was flooded. Janine Jansen's been to see how the pupils and teachers are getting on.
Powderham Castle, a stunning setting fit for an earl. But never in their wildest dreams did the children from Kenton think this would be their new school.
I thought the teachers were joking.
They couldn't wait to enter, with fantasies of Harry Potter and the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry.
I love it. I love all the old furniture. It really brings it into character. I like that we've moved to a castle. It's really exciting.
This time last year, flooding hit Kenton, and their beloved school was a complete mudbath.
To see what we're left with is heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking.
First, they shared with their neighbouring school at Ken. Then they moved into this church in Dawlish. The children really have been on quite a journey.
I really miss Kenton School, but I love being on the move, sort of.
The Earl of Devon is fantastic. He's been so supportive of Kenton Primary School. He really is such a lovely chap. It really feels quite surreal to come to school, down the drive, up through, past the deer park, into the castle. It really has been an amazing experience so far.
Everywhere you look, there are castles and turrets.
The best thing is probably the playground. We can play football and slide tackle without hurting ourselves on tarmac. We also see deer day to day, and I've seen 3 buzzards flying around. Today we saw some geese.
Going back in time is clearly a novelty.
Just love being in the Victorian classroom.
There's lots of old tables, which it's really cool because you've got a section underneath to put all your stationery.
Well, they're really weird because some stuff like slips off and falls.
Yeah. And the seats are really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They've just found out they've got funding to build a brand new school in the village. But the question is, after the magic of Powderham Castle, will they ever want to leave?
Janine Jansen reporting. And that's all from us for now. There'll be a new edition of
Mark Lowen. Anyone who's been on a Tokyo tube train at rush hour will know what a crush you're in for. But one thing you notice is that, unlike in some countries, the children on their way to and from school tend to be rather well behaved. No yelling, throwing chocolate wrappers around, or maybe getting into fights. And that's partly because children in Japan are accustomed to very strict discipline at school. In fact, so much so, they've now been moved to make them just a little less severe. Asia-Pacific regional editor Celia Hatton knows all about Japanese school rules and began by giving me some examples.
A lot of schools, for example, ban boys in particular from wearing coats over their school uniforms. Girls are allowed to wear coats. But girls have a whole list of things that they have to follow. Their underwear has to be a certain color. Their socks have to be a certain color. Their pencil cases can only be a certain shape. They have to be a box shape. Girls have to wear their hair over their ears. And in many schools, anyone who genetically just kind of has light colored hair has to dye their hair to make it even more black. Students are often banned from bicycling to school. The lists go on and on and on. And that's why many feel that Japanese high schools are quite oppressive places and they're just misery-inducing, really.
Are we talking just about secondary school here, or primary schools are like this as well?
No, there's a whole different list of rules for primary school students. I spent quite a lot of time when I was a reporter in Japan looking at primary schools, and they have their own lists of rules. So, for example, students have to help clean their own classrooms in Japan when you're in primary school. But also at lunchtime, primary school students have to eat their lunches in a certain order. So they have to eat everything on their tray that's in box A and then move on to box B. And that's been a subject of discussion in itself. Some people think that it encourages eating disorders because students aren't allowed to decide in what order they're going to eat their lunches.
So if these rules are so widespread and in primary and secondary schools, what's prompted the idea that things need to change?
There's been an ongoing discussion in Japan, particularly over the last few years, that centers around rising levels of youth depression and correspondingly rising levels of youth suicide. So we've seen actually in the past year, 2024, suicide rates in Japan have actually gone down, but youth suicide is at a record high.
Do you think there's going to be resistance to making these rules less severe? Presumably, some Japanese people think it's good that kids are subject to this kind of strong discipline.
Japanese society does have a focus on being polite, to be considerate of others, and to kind of really think about the wider, greater good. And so following the rules is also kind of this idea sort of carried into the workplace. But I think in the past few years in particular, many parents are beginning to question whether the school and teachers and headmasters at schools are actually more important, whether they should have a bigger say in their child's lives than they do. And so there's this kind of push and pull between schools and parents, and I think parents are starting to slowly gain a bit of the upper hand.
Celia Hatton. The singer and actor Marianne Faithfull has died.
Now, it's one of the pitfalls of podcasting, having to pronounce tricky words. Well, this year has been a big one for verbal slip-ups, and we now know the names that we got wrong the most. Isabella Jewell has this report.
They were explaining to me, you can say Kamala, you can say Kamala. I said, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter what I say. I couldn't care less. If I mispronounce it or not, I couldn't care less.
US President-elect Donald Trump on the campaign trail in August, repeatedly mispronouncing the name of his Democratic rival and current American Vice President, Kamala Harris. Her name has tripped up many a pundit, presenter and politician, with the sound of the vowels and where the stress falls varying from person to person. And now Kamala Harris has topped Babbel's 2024 Wrap for being the most mispronounced word of the year in the US. That's despite the fact that Ms. Harris even enlisted the help of her nieces at the Democratic National Convention.
First you say comma like a comma in a sentence. Then you say la like la 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 la.
Put it together and it's 1, 2, 3, Kamala for president!
But she wasn't the only US politician to appear on the list. Pete Buttigieg caused widespread confusion with his Maltese surname.
Buttigieg?
Buttigieg,
Sorry, okay,
yeah,
here I go.
like
Let me get it
judge.
right. Buttigieg.
There you go.
And several artists have also featured near the top. American pop singer Chappell Roan and actress Zendaya, who's caused a buzz this year for her roles in Challengers and Dune 2. Despite the fame, though, Zendaya is often wrongly called Zendaya, as in this interview with a French journalist.
Start with you, Zendaya. Okay. Zendaya, sorry. And Timothée. I'm trying to get it right. It's like, we've got the French way of saying it, the English way, the mixture of both.
I've never called him Timothée.
Timothée.
Names aren't the only words on the list. For the UK, several words of foreign origin have been catching us out. The Swedish tobacco pouches, snus, that have boomed in popularity in recent years are regularly called snus. And an age-old frustration for Italians has been reignited by Sabrina Carpenter's hit song, Espresso. While the song topped the UK's summer charts, lots of us clearly weren't listening closely enough. To many, the small cup of coffee remains an espresso.
Isabella Jewell. And that is all from us for now, but
A new school in India is proving that age is no barrier to learning. It's been set up by two young women committed to empowering senior citizens in their village. Arshdeep Kaur from BBC Punjabi has been finding out more.
This is Bebe Bapu School in Punjab. Its mission is to educate the elders of Ballo village. Bebe Bapu means mother and father, words that are fondly used to refer to older people in Punjabi. The school was started in January by two young women, Rajwinder Kaur and Jasleen Kaur, who wanted to make sure that no one in the village remained illiterate. Initially, the task was to teach them to sign their names, but after their enthusiastic response, the elders are now learning to read, write, and even count. Mohinder Singh, who's 85, is one of them.
I have learnt to sign my name. I can count from 1 to 100 and I have learnt Punjabi alphabets. It was not difficult. I feel happy and not shy to write now.
The school is run in the village library with more than 80 elderly men and women attending for 3 hours a day, 6 days a week. All the classes are taught for free. Most of the students are over 60 years of age and could not attend school when they were younger, mainly due to poverty. 75 years old Mohinder Singh is also one of the students here.
I could not go to school in my childhood. I did farming. My family could not afford education. Now, I am taught how to read and write.
Jaswinder Kaur, who is 75-year-old, had also never attended school before. She is now learning how to write. I used to see people read and write. I always wanted to learn and sign my name instead of thumb stamping. Once they learn to sign their names, the students get reward of 100 Indian rupees, which is equivalent to $1.20. But their teacher Rajvinder Kaur says it's the desire to learn more and be able to read their favorite books and religious texts that make them attend classes every day.
It's up to the villagers if they want to sign up. We have 80 students and we run 2 classes. First, our plan was to teach them how to sign their names. The elders themselves wanted to learn Punjabi alphabets and we are happily teaching them.
That report by Ashdeep Kaur proving that it's never too late to learn. Now, how well do you know your neighbours and would you be able to turn to them for support?
Out more.
Capture pawn.
Head in hands, 8-year-old Timmy mutters to himself as he tries to beat a robot powered by artificial intelligence at a game of chess. This is not an AI showroom or an AI lab. This is a middle-class living room in Beijing. It's like a little teacher or a little friend, he says, as the mechanical arm moves another chess piece. Well done. So you won?
Yes.
China is embracing AI in its bid to become a global leader in technology by 2030. And Timmy's mum, Yan Xue, wants to be ahead of the curve.
This is an inevitable trend. We will coexist with AI. Children should get to know it as soon as possible.
This is what the Communist Party hopes to hear as it pushes AI development to revive the economy. At an exhibition in Shanghai, you get a glimpse of the kind of developments they're looking at. So I'm watching 2 teams of robots play one another at football. Now, it's not perfect when they fall over. They do need a little help getting back up. One's just tumbled there. Humanoid robots also walk among us, alongside back-flipping dog-like bots made by a rising star in China called Unitree. But there's one name on everyone's mind.
DeepSeek.
DeepSeek was a breakthrough Chinese chatbot that caught the world's attention in January. It was seen as proof that Chinese companies can overcome US export controls on advanced chips. Can you make the dinosaur move? Interest in AI is now fostered at an early age in China.
Pairing successful.
What you can hear is a moving brick dinosaur built by an 8-year-old. He's also learning to code to make it move forward and back and, of course, roar. These bots are sold to children as young as 3 across the world, but made here in China. Abbott Liu is the vice president of WalesBot.
Other countries have AI education robots as well, but when it comes to competitiveness and smart hardware, China is doing better. DeepSeek is worth 10 billion yuan of advertising for China's AI industry. It has let the public know that AI is not just a concept, that it can indeed change people's lives. It has inspired public curiosity.
China has more graduates in science, technology, engineering and maths than anywhere else in the world, giving it an edge.
The game is abnormal. I'll restore it.
You
Please
cannot
wait.
cheat.
But that's a natural reaction when human interact with a robot. They try to find whether there's a bug. Yeah.
Tommy Tang is CEO of Sense Robot that makes the chess-playing bot. Now, before artificial intelligence, this robot could cost around $40,000 because of the mechanical arm. But they've used artificial intelligence in the manufacturing process, and that has reduced the cost to around $1,000. Well, she's not happy with me. Do you think one day we will have such a robot that will be able to read our emotions? Do you think that's possible?
For the international version, we do not record the face for the privacy issue, but we do have the capability to determine your emotion from voice, but we do not put it here yet.
Today, I'm playing chess against an AI model.
As companies plan their next move, President Xi continues to invest heavily in AI, in robots and advanced tech, in preparation for a race against the US that he hopes China will eventually win.
Thanks for the game, but you've made great progress. I look forward to our next game.
Laura Bicker reporting. A former senior Facebook executive has told the BBC that the social media company worked on ways to allow the Chinese government to censor content while it was trying to gain access to the Chinese market. Sarah Wynne-Williams, who is Facebook's global public policy director, said the company worked closely with Beijing on the matter. Facebook's parent company Meta says she was fired for poor performance. Sarah Wynne-Williams has been talking to our culture and media editor Katie Razzle.
The former Facebook executive, who worked for the company between 2011 and 2017, makes the claims in a new book. She's also filed a whistleblower complaint with the US markets regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission, alleging Meta misled investors. In the book, she says, in return for gaining access to the Chinese market's hundreds of millions of potential users, Facebook's founder, Mark Zuckerberg, considered agreeing to hiding posts that were going viral in China until they could be checked by the Chinese authorities.
He was working hand in glove with the Chinese Communist Party, building a censorship tool, working to develop sort of the antithesis of many of the principles that underpin Facebook.
What is your evidence for that?
My evidence, I have many hundreds of documents.
Facebook's parent company Meta says Ms. Wynne-Williams had her employment terminated for poor performance. It is no secret we were once interested in operating services in China, it adds. We ultimately opted not to go through with the ideas we'd explored. Ms. Wynne-Williams said she was let go after she had complained about inappropriate comments by one of her bosses, Joel Kaplan, who is now Meta's Chief Global Affairs Officer. Allegations Meta says are false.
7 members of the medical team that treated the Argentinian football legend Diego Maradona before his death have gone on trial.
You may remember a few years ago there was a lot of talk about the Danish word hygge, for which there is no equivalent in the English language. It sums up the cosy feeling that comes from slippers, a fire and perhaps a hot drink. Now, another unique happy word, the Welsh hoel, is being used to try to encourage people to experience the particular type of deep joy it invokes by visiting Wales. Alvone Evans from the School of Psychology at Bangor University explains.
Pnawn da, good afternoon. I'm here to talk to you about hwyl, a little Welsh word with a big meaning. Hwyl can be interpreted in many different ways, which means that it doesn't have one direct translation in English. However, a popular interpretation is that hwyl is a deep state of joy that comes from being totally immersed in the moment. Hwyl can be felt in a lot of different places, such as exploring a forest canopy with friends, stargazing under dark skies, immersing yourself in culture at the Eisteddfod, or switching between a sauna and the surf on the beach. The interesting thing about Hwyl is it comes to life in both relaxing and energetic environments. On one hand, Hwyl can release dopamine and raise the heartbeat, creating this prolonged sense of euphoria. Hwyl can also slow things right down, with endorphins reducing stress, causing the entire body to relax. Essentially, Hwyl is your own particular form of happiness.
We start with a puzzle, or maybe two. What's the square root of 93? All right, here's another one. What day of the week was it on the 12th of August, 1832? You don't know? Well, me neither, but I have had the chance to speak to a 14-year-old boy who could work out the answer to questions like this and in the blink of an eye. Aryan Shukla has just won the Mental Calculation World Cup for the second time and also holds a Guinness World Records title. Aryan spoke to me from his home near Mumbai, India, and told me first how his unusual talent was first spotted.
My parents noticed this first, that I was doing something extraordinary, and my parents then researched about the mental maths and its competitions.
One of the exercises you did was multiplying 8-digit numbers together, and it says that you managed 28 of these in 10 minutes, which I've got to say I find incredible. I'm going to give you a chance to show us. Here's two 8-digit numbers to multiply together. 17,487,362 multiplied by 12,945,190.
Okay, I will just spell. The answer is 2263802236887880.
Amazing. Now, the other thing which I read you did, which I found particularly extraordinary, is being able to work out the day of the week for any date between 1600 and 2099. So I'm going to give you one of those if that's okay. How about June the 12th, 1742?
12 June 1742. Tuesday.
That is amazing. I mean, I had to look that up. It took me even longer to do it with a computer. How does it feel when you complete an incredibly difficult task like that?
It feels good that I can do this tough task, but now I am trying to do it faster, 20 digits by 20 digits in 105 seconds.
Most of us can't even hold a 20-digit number in our heads, let alone multiply them. I mean, what does it feel like? Does it hurt your head?
It feels good and amazing when I complete the task correctly.
I'm delighted to say we're now joined by Aryan's father. You must be very proud of your son. He not only won this competition, I think he broke a couple of world records as well.
Yes, we are very proud parents, and he has done something which has never happened in last 10 editions of the World Cup. So that is very special. Me and my wife are normal human beings. Looking at his journey for last 8 years, what we can observe, as he was very keen from a childhood to play with the numbers.
Fantastic. Aryan, what about your friends? What do they think of your achievements?
They are proud of me. And also in India, everyone feels proud that because I represent India, my nation, at various international competitions. So it is an amazing feeling for everyone.
Is it like a sport? I mean, you have to keep practicing to do it.
Yes, and when a competition is a year or a month, so I generally do 6-7 hours.
You're doing maths, mental maths, 6 or 7 hours a day?
Yeah, and in normal circumstances also I practice 2 to 3 hours.
Is there a plan for the future? I know you're only 14, but do you want to go on and become a mathematician?
I want to go in mathematics field and continue doing mental maths side by side.
I saw that you can also calculate square roots. So tell us the square root of, 73.
It is 8.544037.
Aryan Shukla. Now to a major breakthrough in the